Now, the ceasefire in Gaza is more or less holding. Families returning to the ruins of their homes are now trying to find the bodies of missing loved ones. DW's Tanya Krämer and Mohammed Ibrahim report on what may turn out to be an impossible task for some Palestinians. A warning, some viewers may find this report disturbing.
Walking through what was Shatit refugee camp in Gaza City is not easy. It was here that Hani Daifi's entire family was killed. The bodies of his wife and 2 of his children are still buried somewhere under the rubble. But he's just one of thousands of people in Gaza asking for help.
I appealed to everyone, left nothing undone. I posted on social media, I reached out to civil defense. I personally went to the emergency and local committees. I notified everyone simply so that I can honor my wife and children by burying them so that I can sleep.
It was over a month ago that the Israeli Air Force bombed the area as the military advanced into Gaza City. Hani says his family of 6 had planned to leave for the south later that day. He was taking dough to the nearby communal bakery when the house was hit. He found one of his sons in the street.
There was a body here, my son Bashir. Honestly, I couldn't recognize him. No head, no body, nothing. Only his hand was there, and someone brought his foot.
He was able to bury the body parts of his 2 eldest sons, but his wife and their 2 younger children are still under the rubble, and he can't get to them without heavy machinery.
On the day of the truce, the first day of the truce, there was long hair here under this concrete slab, and I honestly thought it was my wife. We dug. I brought my brothers and the neighborhood folks. We dug by hand, as you can see here. We kept digging and digging until we reached it and found the bone dissolved. But the hair was still there. When we got there, we found this half missing and the other half like this. So I thought it was my wife.
But it was the body of the neighbor's daughter. More than 10,000 bodies are still buried under the rubble, says Gaza's Hamas government-run civil defense. During the war, the rescue services were overwhelmed with calls for help. Now, they're having to focus on what they can do.
For many of them, we can't do anything, meaning if there's a family under the rubble with lots of debris and concrete, we can't do anything for them. Now we're working on recovering bodies that are easier to retrieve, like bodies in the roads, bodies in the streets, bodies that can be brought out from the rubble if the building is small.
For Hani Daifi, the loss is overwhelming.
My future is over, honestly. Right now, all I'm thinking about is to bury my wife and children, then go out and try to see what life I have left. My children were the apple of my eye. My eldest was 13 and a half. At school, my children were among the top in West Gaza.
He says he's unable to grieve until he can bury his family with dignity, just like many others across Gaza.
Let's cross over to Dalal Iriqat. She is an associate professor of diplomacy at the Arab American University Palestine. She joins us from Ramallah in the West Bank. Dalal, the story that we've just seen, we heard him say that his future is over. Is that a very bleak sentiment, a common one in Gaza right now?
Well, I do have friends and family in Gaza. Just to be clear, those who survived the shelling and the rockets and the genocide are now looking for life, are now looking for a reason for life. So unless everybody puts pressure on the Israeli government to really bring back peace, let alone, of course, the humanitarian aid, open the borders, bring sanity, to say the least, to the people of Gaza after the suffering and the endurance that they have been going for the past 2 years. Also add to this the past, 18 years of siege, of blockade, of deprivation of the basic human rights. So yes, if you speak with any civilian now in Gaza, and please bear in mind that half of the population of Gaza are children. So 1 million children are living in Gaza. More than 20,000 of those have lost their parents. So they are orphans in Gaza, basically, of course, deprived of any food, medication, shelter, or a roof or a ceiling, let alone the water, electricity, or the right to education or medication. It is literally a genocide, literally a destruction of what humanity can take, by definition, legally speaking, in the 21st century. Yet, if you speak to people in Gaza who are still alive, those are hopeful and looking for a new reason for life.
Can you see, with the clearing of the rubble starting, can you already see any signs of progress there?
Well, honestly speaking, it's hard to see progress while we don't see guarantees for the sustainability of the ceasefire agreement. The fact that we see reluctance from the Israeli side, the borders are not open entirely, the humanitarian aid trucks are not going in, normally and without restrictions. The food barely can reach, the thousands of people, especially the people in the north. The northern parts of Gaza, who are totally isolated. The fact that Israel is still controlling also the eastern parts of the Gaza Strip. So, no, humanitarian aid is not coming in automatically or as it had been agreed between the mediators. And that's where we should be focusing, I believe, the sustainability and the guarantees that this ceasefire agreement will hold after the release of the hostages and the bodies of the dead bodies from the Israeli side. I'm afraid that the Israeli side will just pull back from the agreement once they have all the hostages back, because this is a deja vu scenario that we had witnessed as Palestinians with the violations and the breach of the deja vu agreements, previously with Israel. In the past 12 years, we had seen 5 wars where we had ceasefires, which had been interrupted every now and then by an Israeli decision. So the Palestinian side really need to see that the mediators are enforcing guarantees and that there is some evaluation and accountability mechanisms to hold the people who breach any agreement or any detail of the process accountable. Number 2, the Palestinians are very much concerned about a ceasefire agreement that will take us to the day after, that will really take us to a pathway for peace, meaning an inclusive, strategic, regional peace, which must end with tackling the root cause of the problem, which is the Israeli military occupation. As long as we're only focused on economic solutions, on treating the Palestinian cause from a humanitarian lens alone, this will not serve. The root cause of this problem, and I hear my message here, from any expert in conflict resolution or peace studies knows this very well. It is not contestable that we need to tackle the root causes of the instability in the region. Trump is very optimistic about peace for the Middle East. We welcome it very much and we applaud his enthusiasm. But as experts and in the field, we remind him that we need to start by ending the Israeli military occupation in order to avoid the atrocities and the war crimes that the Palestinians have been suffering from. However, we see that Israel is still enjoying impunity in face of the accountability, the atrocities that it is committing.
Dalal, Iriqat there from the American University, Palestine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So where does Gaza go next? Well, Faria Nasruddin is an associate analyst at AMENA Strategies. She joins us from Washington, D.C. Welcome to DW. We're effectively looking at the reconstruction of a country, a territory, from scratch, from rubble. Is Donald Trump's proposed Board of Peace the right setup to begin the process of this reconstruction?
Thanks for having me on, Phil. To begin, I'll just lay out what exactly the 20-point plan outlines in terms of economic and physical reconstruction. The 20-point plan combines different pools, namely security, governance, and a political solution with economic and social reconstruction. Specifically, the plan outlines that Gaza will be, quote, redeveloped for the benefit of the people of Gaza, who have suffered more than enough, end quote, and that they will be convening a panel of experts in order to put forth a more detailed plan for reconstruction. Right now, the details are very murky. And moreover, before we can even get to that stage, the ceasefire right now is very shaky. And the immediate needs are not necessarily reconstruction, which will take not only years, but almost, I could say, a multi-generational effort. I think just to give you some quotes, the reconstruction, or just, for example, clearing the debris, which is there's 50 million tons of debris and only 81,000 of which have been cleared so far, could take upwards or up to 15 years. So looking more long term, a panel of experts is, great to have a model off of. But in fact, I think just as the 20-point plan calls out a panel of experts, there needs to be consultations with civil society in order to really assess from an on-the-ground perspective what the needs will be, not only in terms of reconstruction, but in terms of the people.
Right. And because this is such a long-term, multi-generational task, one of the biggest things, I guess, is going to be legitimacy. If this technocratic government is going to be there overseeing this, then at some stage, the people need to have a sense that this is theirs, as you said, and that this is for their benefit.
100%. And I mean, again, that's why the consultations with civil society are so key. I think, zooming more into women's political participation in these reconstruction processes and the participation of civil society groups writ large, it makes these peace agreements, I think the stat is 64% less likely to fail. And so if we're looking at long-term legitimacy, that key mechanism will be critical for its success.
Right. And what about the potential role of Arab countries? How do they fit in to this long-term rebuilding?
I think right now, I think the news from just yesterday was that there needs to be, someone needs to finance reconstruction, and there needs to be this international stabilization force as two immediate steps in order to even begin thinking about a long-term plan. And right now, those are facing roadblocks. According to the World Bank in the UN, reconstruction will take upwards of or about $70 billion. No one is currently set in stone to foot the bill for this. European nations have been floated, Arab nations, Canada, the US, but again, nothing is confirmed. And moreover, for the International Stabilization Force, I think many Arab countries in particular are reluctant about sending troops in onto the ground when it comes to legitimizing a plan that may not lead to a permanent two-state political solution.
Right. Thanks for talking us through that so clearly, Faria. Faria and Nasruddin from AMENA Strategies.
Thanks.